Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Anime Crossing, where a bunch of nerdy-ass weebs sit around discussing anime. With me today, I have some beautiful people who will now hopefully proceed to introduce themselves and not ruin this take.
Hey everybody, I'm the Bane's Hero, coming to you live from Quarantine Land, aka YouTube Land, and soon to be Twitch Land, hopefully.
It's Baja Irish Rico.
It's Ryan.
This is Nate. How's it going?
Clarity, I don't think we're streaming this live, so it's a recording. But hey, this is Big Nash.
Damn, I wish I had a cool jingle like that. I'm Ishan.
Right
and, oh damn, fuck. It's Ish. All right. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about, haven't you
My
heard?
favorite.
I'm Sakamoto. It's a comedy anime, and the studio that produced it is Studio Dean. As usual, we're going to go around the table here and just start from the top. Everybody just give us your general thoughts about this, and we'll kind of go from there.
Well, if you guys can't tell from my icon, if we're using that, I would deem Haven't You Heard I'm Sakamoto as one of my top 5 anime. It's really feel good. I didn't think I would like it so much because, I don't know, Sakamoto seemed just by face value that he was just some smug, really good looking guy that had a, what do they call it, an RBF? But for
Earth is an RBF.
Resting bitch face.
Oh.
But I mean, he smiles, but like you just don't know what the reasoning behind that is, which is kind of intriguing. But there's a lot of heart to it, and I was really surprised by how much I was just engrossed in what was happening, and it was really feel good. When you hear the jingle, there's almost that kind of instinctive reaction. You're like, oh man, when the saxophone, or what is it, a saxophone?
Yeah,
I forget what.
Trumpet. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's when the instrumentals kick on, you're just like, oh no, what kind of craziness is gonna happen now? And it's just a good time.
So, I'll be honest, I kind of I definitely like the pilot episode a lot. I'm of the opinion I think it really kind of lost steam a little bit going down through the show to the point where it started to drag a little bit. My big issue, just to touch on it, was I feel like it overuses the premise a little bit too much, and they don't savor those jokes or like huge punches that like make you laugh. Instead, it's like they try to go for a lot of small laughs and not all of them hit, and that kind of like hurts the pacing in my opinion.
I would agree with David in aspects of where it dies off in the end. Me personally, like if you don't have to thoroughly like actually judge this anime based on like if you don't have to actually critique it and you're just watching it just to kind of let time go by, it's not bad. Like the pilot episode is pretty good. I mean, some jokes were kind of funny. I mean, there's a few scenes that like I actually enjoyed, but it started to like getting really repetitive. And then it was kind of like, all right, I'm watching this at work while I do other stuff because I'm paying attention. I don't have to visually be engaged at all times to know what's happening.
It's funny because I actually didn't notice that what you guys mentioned, but I'm gonna be completely honest here. I actually fucking loved it.
Oh yeah.
Like this show, like literally, I think. Like it kind of dwindled down with as it went down because you as you guys mentioned, it did get repetitive, but I didn't mind it. It was one of those things where like in the first 5 episodes I was like, this guy's a god, like what's happening, and because somehow he would just figure out a way to just be fucking cool about it and figure things out. All in all, I really enjoyed the show because it reminded me of this show that my high school friends told me never to watch, and then I watched it, or at least the first 2 episodes, Nishijo. And to me, it was like a combination of Nishijo and One Punch Man with the satirical, like, kind of way of portraying things that's, via One Punch Man, and then just the random and like slice of life adventures that kind of happen, but they're so like amplified by this mysterious guy. All in all, I really enjoyed it, and I do have to say that some of the characters were like very one. I do apologize for the doggo. She's just here, but some of the characters were very like one sided. Unfortunately, Sakamoto was one of them, but he was still interesting because he was just like there was so much mystery behind them. But I enjoyed it overall, and I can't wait to deep dive into like what you guys thought of some of the characters and what you guys thought of it as like a comedic show in general.
So, I mean, at a high level, as far as like short form comedies go, it's pretty funny in parts. There are other parts where it just kind of, I don't know if just the jokes didn't hit and I didn't have adequate cultural context, or if it just didn't match my humor sensibilities. But there were parts that either left me head scratching due to lack of understanding, or just kind of I got the punchline, but I just didn't find it funny. So it was really inconsistent in that way. I liked the concept behind Sakamoto as a character, which is comedic things happen to him with his ridiculous, coolest buff, which is kind of the entire premise, where he's like the coolest human being in existence. He's able to get out of situations, but he's never mean-spirited toward anybody and always making sure that nothing ever happens at anyone else's expense. I like the concept. In execution, a lot of the subversion stuff that happens as a result was either really predictable, or it was like, okay, you subverted the expectation, but the subversion is inherently not that compelling? I don't know. So there were parts of it that were really funny and parts of it that were just kind of didn't hit. Overall, it was interesting, I guess, to watch, but definitely not cracking my top 10 comedies anytime soon.
It seems like we have an interesting spectrum so far of like what people thought. For me personally, I like to think that I have a pretty open and broad sense of humor. I can find really stupid humor, funny. Just ask anybody here. I make the dumbest puns constantly, and I think it's hilarious. But I can also find really highbrow, very clever humor equally funny, And I honestly just barely laughed when I watched this show, quite frankly. I don't know what it is. I mean, maybe the sense of humor just didn't jive with me, and that's okay. It's difficult to critique a comedy show inherently because humor is critiquing a show in general is so subjective, but humor is the epitome of subjective, right? But I barely laughed, quite frankly. And I like what David mentioned. I found the pilot to be quite interesting, but the novelty of that situation of Sakamoto being like this god among men, and bad things almost happen to him and he gets out of it somehow, and everybody loves him, even the boys and the girls are all like, oh la la la. It just gets so grating so fast, man. And I'm glad you brought up One Punch Man because I thought of the same thing. I'm like, oh, this is kind of like if One Punch Man was only a comedy. But One Punch Man, the reason it's good and a lot of people love it, and kind of goes into why I didn't like the show, is that One Punch Man outside of Saitama has a stellar cast. And this show absolutely does not have a good cast.
100%.
And the ensemble of a comedy is so important. Okay? For example, The Office, right? Michael Scott is fucking amazing, right? You watch it because you love Michael Scott. But every single other character on that show is amazing too, and it's how they interact together that makes the show so powerful. But this show relies so much on Sakamoto being amazing, and everybody else is just all over his dick. And quite frankly, a lot of people in the show are just dumb. They're just so idiotic. Like, they make the dumbest decisions constantly. And I get that that's the point, but I just found it asinine and just not very funny. And I wish the rest of the cast was like as interesting as Sakamoto is for the first couple of episodes. And they even try to like shoehorn in a villain later, which really didn't hit at all. I mean, you knew he was just gonna get out of it. I mean, they tried to have like an emotional moment later with Achan, which I didn't feel at all, quite frankly. Like, like I don't know. I don't know what it is about the show. It just didn't jive with me in a lot of ways. And like you brought up Nichijou too. I love Nichijou, right? Nichijou, Konosuba,
It's so addictive.
yeah, Konosuba,
Seriously.
like Gintama, like these shows are funny. Gekkan Shoujo Nozaki-kun. These shows are funny because the entire cast is amazing, and I feel like relying on one, they took a risk. I feel like relying on one character too much just doesn't work in comedy. That's kind of where I landed by the end of it. But I don't want to harp too much on my own opinion. We can start going into some more questions here. I'm talking about Sakamoto a lot, so let's talk about him. He's shown as this flawless character, right? How did that kind of appeal to you guys in the show? Because we have some people who loved it here and some people who were kind of mad about it. So did him being flawless really impact you in those reasons? Let's go into that.
If I, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Hiro.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, now going in, I was expecting not really to like the character, and I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what to expect with the intro, because the intro usually reveals some information of like the character's personality, what to foreshadow with. And there wasn't like a whole lot to go off of, so I think it's appropriate once I got into it because it's very episodic, but I watched a couple of things, and this was my third time watching Sakamoto. It's only 12 episodes, or technically 13, but the 13th is kind of it's a weird hybrid of like a recap slash
Like a recap and an epilogue.
They kind of said it in the
a recap,
episode too.
an epilogue, and what did they call it? A reboot of sorts. Yeah, I could say that. Not to give any like crazy spoilers, but I would say it's just fine if you stop at 12 episodes. But my approach to it is not necessarily like straight absurdist comedy, nor would I say it's a kind of highbrow comedy. I gave it the description of a real feel-good anime. Over like I didn't like it as a comedy because there was definitely times, especially with the B guy, the guy who always wore the black and yellow boxers, and he's just cruising around school. I don't understand. I really didn't understand that. Aspect of why they put that in there, but I mean, it's him being comfortable with his body, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Body or what are they? Body positivity. More power to you. But really, what I could pull away from it is kind of comparing it to why people like Superman. When you have a character who's so predictable, so powerful, so morally in one direction, and he can't be. Huh? What?
Yeah, that's just me because you went into my territory. Superman and DC superheroes. I was like, oh, I can argue about this all day, but never mind. I'm gonna step back. We'll talk
Yeah,
about
I mean, when you're going with a character that is very predictable, obviously it's been reinforced that even put in a tough situation, like what would you do in that situation? I put myself in his shoes, and I had kind of like this is my third time going through it, but yet there were still things that I enjoyed, and I still knew things that were kind of emerging out of what I didn't notice on the first two times. And that's what I liked about it, is when there's an anime that I can rewatch and still enjoy it repeat times, I feel that goes to show its quality to me. I still had really good laughs, but there were ultimately just reinforcements for the side of it being a feel good, and kind of it was very positive. However, you guys are right in your kind of general feel of the supporting cast not really stepping up to the plate, and it's kind of just riding on the shoulders of this really almost godlike predictability, but ultimate good. But like, how is he going to get out of this, tough situation and turn a bad situation on its head? And that's what I got from it towards the end. I mean, it goes through a number of different kind of it touches on a lot of different genres. I mean, there was an episode that had or I would say 3 to 4 episodes that were kind of a drama. Then there was one that was a kind of slice of life where he's kind of coming off as a mentor to these little kids, and he's. I think my favorite part was the part with the coach, because I mean I don't know, uh, that one in particular, it subverted a lot of my expectations, and that's what you really kind of, I would say, to get the best enjoyment out of it, is to just kind of relax and not hold it to a high standard where like entertain me and like just demand so much of it. You just kind of have to just take it in passively, and if it works, it works, and some things don't. Um, but I would say the coach one is one of my favorites. But what's his friend's name? I'm forgetting his best friend's name, but his Sakamoto's best friend, his mom. She has a recurring part in it. But I'm going too much in detail in terms of like what exactly was going on episode by episode. But ultimately, that's what I liked about it. It touched on a lot of different genres with like a little bit of horror, a little bit of drama, a little bit of slice of life, a little bit of it was towards the end, it was going on a soapbox in a way. And I from my research of Sakamoto, that the manga is, or I think is it a light novel? I forget the distinction of it, but I think it's a finite series. It's a manga.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's a finished manga. The author didn't decide to continue on with it, so it can, like, the whole collection can be, obtained at this point in time. And I don't know, I think it's fine as it is. And as a complete finished piece of work, I enjoyed it, and I feel like it'll stick with me for a lot of things that I would like to, share with other people. And so far, I mean, it's I don't know. I in times when, I don't know, it's probably just I enjoy it a lot because I have a very sad and kind of terrible life, and I like something that makes me feel good. So that's why I really enjoyed it. And I really appreciate and respect characters like the Supermans out there that can't be swayed, but really it's the circumstances that they're put in, and they find solutions. And they're often solutions that I wouldn't really figure out on my own, which kind of I get enjoyment out of that. I get enjoyment out of people finding solutions, people fixing things, people working with each other, even though they aren't on good terms at first. That's another reason why I like JoJo. When you find an enemy, they don't have to stay enemies, and Sakamoto does that, and that's why I enjoy it. So yeah.
They can't be swayed, but can they be segued?
I fucking knew it.
So
we
Josh,
explain this now or later?
No. So Josh, look. So like, I think I get what you're saying about the just feel good anime, just kind of take it for what it is type of thing. And I think my question was, the main focus was like him as like a flawless character. And I don't think again, I get where you're coming from, but I don't think the Superman comparison is completely apt because
Thank you.
Superman is not flawless. He's OP, but he has been shown several times to be very stubborn and in his own way. And when people look up to him as like a father figure, he can actually be very distant. Like he actually has a couple flaws, and the entire point of his character is like he can literally hear everybody that's suffering on the planet at the same time and cannot help everybody. So there's a lot of depth and flaws to his character, and it's a lot more complex than he seems on paper. So I don't think the comparison is exactly 1-to-1 because Sakamoto's kind of shown to be completely without flaw. So in that vein, in that focus, how did you guys feel about how it seems like the world kind of revolves around him in this show, and that a lot of people just kind of wait for him to show up and fix everything? Like, how did you guys feel about that?
If I may,
Yes, go ahead.
So I kind of at least regarding specifically Sakamoto himself, I do see that basically like where people just kind of wait and hope that he shows up. At least, actually, not even people, because there's so many episodes where with everybody else, like the rest of the cast. I think the episode that comes to mind for the most part is when they're doing the showcase event and they make like balloons and like things like the unknown out of balloons. Like basically it got so repetitive where you kind of expect, or the audience expects, to see Sakamoto come back rather than the people within his cast or his classmates. But what I don't know, like I guess the reason why him being flawless didn't bother me was because I went to, like, from the get-go, like that first episode made me think, this guy is that kind of guy, so to speak. This is gonna be one of those like Nishijo kind of shows where I should expect him to be this way because he's just gonna be able to figure it out somehow. And I didn't, like, basically I wasn't, similar to what Hiro said, like I wasn't putting too much into thinking about it. For the most part, I was just like, okay, yeah, I'm here for the laugh, or I'm here for like, okay, that's funny, like that's cool, I guess. And that's what I was there for. Like I wasn't expecting too much out of it. I do agree with what Ishan said, where basically the rest of the crew, like the rest of the cast, is very lacking, and depending too much on that character, oh man, it's like having a white knight. So at some point it gets tiring. You're expecting it, and so on and so forth. And it's kind of like, well, I mean, we know Sakamoto's gonna show up and figure this out, so like, whatever. So it didn't really make me care that much for everybody else or for the specific situations that were happening, because I knew Sakamoto was gonna come by. What I really liked about Sakamoto, though, even though this is freaking terrible for any kind of writing, specifically for those of you who are readers, having a one-sided, there's a specific term for that, not one-sided, but like having a one-dimensional character rather than a three-dimensional character, it's boring. Like, not even gonna lie, like it's boring in general for any kind of writing, any kind of story, period. But what I was intrigued about with Sakamoto, being one-dimensional or flawless, was that I wanted to know where he was coming from. I wanted to know how he learned to be that friggin' flawless. I wanted to learn how he became, if you guys have seen Princess Bride, the freaking pirate, how he acquired all these skills. I wanted to know that. I really did. And like, I guess towards the end, I was kind of hoping, because it went into a little bit of drama, I was kind of hoping that they would just be like, yeah, hey, Sakamoto's actually like some absurd alien, because I was thinking like the episode where he fakes being possessed and then makes the girls work together to make this tower. Like, I was like, oh, when he said, oh, the human race is very interesting, and I was like, oh shit, he's an alien. But then at the end I was like, oh no, he's just human. Okay, cool, I guess, like that's cool, whatever. But I was so looking forward to kind of seeing a little bit more of Sakamoto. I guess like I guess even though I wasn't expecting anything, I was hoping to see something. Like especially towards the end, where I forgot the name of the blonde guy that he helped out. That's like one of the
Hayabusa
delinquents. Yeah, Hayabusa. He's just like, hey,
with the
you're.
motorcycle.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, you're not really going to America, are you? And I was like, huh, are we getting into some deep stuff now? Huh? Are we? Are we? And then he just walks away. I did like though that towards the end, that what set him apart from being a like basically from not caring about anyone was that everybody in the last episode they were like, we want to see your face pied, and he dodged everything. But then towards the end, as he's leaving towards the teacher, he pies himself, and I was just like, this is a character that even though he's one dimensional, they showed that he actually cares in general about everybody, even though he looks out for them. It's not just looking out for them regarding like I want to look cool and be cool. It's just like I actually cared, even though he multiple times throughout the show did things for other characters. That last moment was what solidified for me that he actually cares about his classmates. I just don't understand. Like, I want to understand the reason why he left. I want to understand why he had all these abilities, and so to speak, I say abilities, but like all these skills as a human being. But yeah, I mean, overall, yes, unfortunately, Sakamoto is incredibly one-dimensional, and the cast was lacking. But even though those were negatives, so to speak, about it, I still enjoyed the show in general because of what Hiro said. In general, it is a feel-good show. If you don't think about it and you just turn your head off for like a few minutes and watch it, you're gonna have one hell of a time. Like seriously. But that's my main thoughts, at least on Sakamoto as a character.
Let, let me follow up on that because I'm going to go a little bit of different direction because I think Sakamoto might have seemed one-dimensional to me in the first episode, and that's what they were going for. But I think he had more depth than you guys are saying, at least to me, as the show progressed. Because I think him showing that he cared about his friends and people that is very obvious to me that he did think of them as friends. He was helping them. He did sweet things for them. When his friend like dropped his necklace thing, he remade it. It's not just because he's cool. It's because he's like genuinely a nice person. When they had that episode where he defended his friend from like that fight after work, one that really sticks with me is when he was following the mafia. Okay, low-key they're trying to be mafia bosses, but they're just sophomores. When he was following the sophomore and everything, right? At first it was a little confusing, right? I was like, that doesn't seem in his character, right? Because he's supposed to be
just school thugs.
Yeah, there's school thugs, right? But it didn't seem in his character at first, right? Because I was very intrigued because I was like, he's supposed to be someone who doesn't really fall below anyone else because he's just at a top tier. And even if he doesn't boast it with words, he'll boast it with his actions. So when he did things that were kind of beneath what he would do, even though it's using his ability, someone is directing him to do that. He's never seemed to be under anyone's grasp. But then when you go to the end of the episode, you realize that was all a play just to put people kind of in their place and to show that taking advantage of people is not good. And it kind of taught him throughout it showed that one character who, not a huge character in the show in the long run, but you definitely see the growth in that one episode for that character where he doesn't, he wasn't as bossy anymore. He didn't take advantage of his subordinates anymore. So I think there's a lot of depth to Sakamoto, and even though he acts one way, I don't really think that makes him one-dimensional because his actions are giving him that kindness to him, that somewhat of humor, because some of it, like, you can tell some of it was humorous on purpose. Also just him caring about, like, his speeches, a lot of what he says, like, I think the other characters, their role, as little as it was to express kind of like what, like, the depth that Sakamoto had to a degree, even though they're just so awestruck.
Right. To reinforce that, okay, so when I say like I'm comparing him to Superman. Obviously, we know that no one's perfect, even Superman. But what I'm saying is, like, we get to see like them put to the test
Mm-hmm.
and how they come out of it. now, even when you bring up the whole thing with the mafia, or like the whole mob of
School gang,
school thugs, it's interesting because he does everything that they say that they want, but it's like he takes it to the extreme, and he kind of shows them like, hey, even though like I'll do what you're saying, but because that you're doing that, I'm going to show you the flaws in your own ways and like teach you a lesson, but I'm going to teach you a lesson by like doubling down on what you want and show you that this isn't the right way to behave. And that's it. I don't know, it's really interesting. It's kind of like a monkey's paw thing. You be careful what you wish for, be careful what you want, because not everyone is going to bend the way that you want them to, no matter how powerful you are, and no matter how like adjusted and kind of well thought out that Sakamoto is. I would say that he's not even he's not perfect. Like, to me, there were times where he's kind of like a bully, or he does things that are kind of like mean spirited, but he does it in a way where it's kind of forgivable. Like, it's not like he does things mean spirited to be mean spirited. It's like it just ends up like, hey, that's kind of hurtful, like what he did with his best friend. His best friend is kind of like a grounding point to Sakamoto, but I don't know. There's a lot of interesting dynamics with that. One example would be the Burger King, or not Burger King, the stand-in for the McDonald's, or like the fast food place that they work for. I mean, he throws the thing, and like he ends up having his best friend like lose his wages, because it's kind of a hard lesson for him to learn, but he learns to be better for it. And then there's little bits and pieces, like why does he let his friend get hit in the face with a softball? Like, it's like he's not perfect, is what I'm saying. Is like everyone has flaws, but it's just interesting to see how there's a person that everyone looks up to, how he interacts and kind of comes out of it, on the other end.
He flexes.
That's my comparison to Superman.
He flexes too hard and makes us betas just look bad. That's the real villainy in him.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, to wind the scope back again to Sakamoto's depth as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Articulate this. Like, I don't think him getting out of situations like in the way that he does seemingly effortlessly necessarily indicates his lack of depth, because as stated before, he is just trying to, like, in a way, help people better themselves by, in some cases, being an example, or in some cases, just living with great intensity. But, I mean, the thing is, there's no real... If there's any, quote, depths to be found, I think it's more in the side characters, which, unfortunately, due to the nature of the side characters, isn't saying necessarily a lot. Like, there are a couple standout moments, but overall, they don't even change that much. I guess there's, like, small growth things that happens. Like, Aina becomes less of a... I mean, she's
really
stays pretentious, but
literally the exact same.
yeah, she doesn't change very much overall, but she does, like, one would hope that she's less mean to at least the other two girls who, after that episode, start following around and they seem to be friends. So it's like not a significant change at all, but at least something happened, like some world state change occurred. And then his best friend, like, he goes from being bullied to eventually inviting them to his house and feeding them, and they all having a party. Like, so there's some small weird things that kind of happen that are like, this is gross, I guess. But in terms of Sakamoto himself, he doesn't really feel like he changes or grows. So I don't see any depth in that way. So from that perspective, you have to look at his inherent depth, because it doesn't ever change. Yep. Which, like, I don't even know half the time if he's living with the intention of trying to, like, bring out the best in other people. He's just kind of doing shit, right? Like, yep. For example, the rainstorm backstory thing, or flashback, where, like, the three girls are, like, sitting under the tree thinking about how did we all meet Sakamoto anyway, right? And she talks about how she met him in a rainstorm and everyone's umbrellas were getting wrecked, but when his umbrella came inside out, he treated it like a wine glass. I don't think he's trying to make a message there. I think he's just that kind of person.
He's a rainbow sommelier, Biggie.
That's the other thing, right? Like, so I don't know if there's some like cultural nuance here that I don't get revolving around how Japanese people perceive
How they
the,
use
like,
umbrellas.
elegantness of like that type of behavior or whatever. But for me personally, after seeing that, I'm just like, okay, so when I hear sommelier, I am assuming this person can identify wines with some accuracy, if not total accuracy. I will admit I'm not educated in how sommeliers work at a high level. I know there's some study about how they took some sommeliers and blindfolded them and they quote exposed unquote that like it's not a perfect science, whatever. We're not talking about wine here, we're talking about this damn anime. But like it's like, okay, if I see a person acting like a sommelier with rain, I'm not gonna like interpret the rain as something celebrating me going into a school. You know, like, and I don't even know if Sakamoto intended for that to happen, but that just kind of happened. So I don't know if that speaks to Sakamoto's depth so much as just how other people interpret his actions, right? Like,
No, but I mean,
so I don't even know. Like, I don't really know how much depth is there. I think he's just that kind of person that just does things and tries to
Right.
make sure
But
he
no, I
doesn't
think-
hurt other people.
I would.
I thought that part was hilarious. Like it was definitely an absurdist thing, but it's like I don't think you even have to really think too much into it because it's just like, hey, this thing's broken, but is it broken? And then it's I don't know. I was laughing at it. I'm just remembering it in my head, and I'm laughing. So
I mean, I was amused, but that amusement was also mixed with confusion.
But that's
Like-
that's the beauty of the humor. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I agreed that like some of the, I don't love the show, but like the humor that they're going for, maybe not the character depth or whatever, going to the character aspects, right? But the humor is absurdist humor, and it's supposed to be ridiculous, and just the absolute like shock value, and just like whoa, like it's supposed to throw you off. Like, I don't think the humor, not there's some instances, but I think a lot of the humor is not really supposed to show that much depth. It's just supposed to show like he has a certain style, he has a certain class, he's so cool, and like he'll make any weird, awkward situation that most people would hate or be, ridiculed in, like he'll just make it somehow eloquent. But going to your point though, with the depth where you don't see him grow that much. I mean, again, like I still think that they introduce him as a flawless character that doesn't seem to be really bothered by anyone else, and I think that's the main thing. But throughout the show, it shows that he cares for a lot of people. He cares for wildlife. I mean, I love the fact that they made an effort to keep on showing him feeding the birds and showing that and stuff like that. And I don't think depth has to be depth in a way where it's like I have this interesting character arc. Like, you don't have to, not everyone has to have a Zuko character arc to have depth. Right, like
Zuko.
Yeah, but I mean,
agree.
But it's like
I'm not saying he necessarily even had to grow. I'm just saying, like, I don't think you can assign depth based on the actions within the context of how other people react to them. It's more just he just does things.
But
I think.
the reaction kind of shows like I guess the reaction is more of like the viewer's view, like the the watcher.
Exactly.
And it's like
I don't think Sakamoto's intention is ever they should react this way unless he's trying to make a point, which he does do a few times.
Yeah, but he doesn't how do I say
Always
this?
do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't always do that, right? But I think the depth is just showing that even when people are not watching, and then a lot of times that's what these side characters are doing. They're just, it's creepy, but they just see him doing like, they see him in his like personal life, like feeding a bird, or just like even the umbrella thing, or just when he was running on the side of the fucking like lake thing, right?
Yeah, the
like
canal thing.
the canal thing, right?
Yeah.
They just take random aspects that grow in his character, and it shows depth, because like every single time he's doing something that's usually to care for some animal, or to like keep his composure, and like I don't know, I think there's still depth to be had there, where like each little humorous thing, or each viewing from another character's perspective, just shows that like, oh wow, he's really about this, or he cares about this, or he does this, or he, like everything he does is like very perfect, even at his job. the concern and the aspect he did there, that shows that like he has some kind of, I mean, he has a standard to how he lives and how he presents himself, but like that's also like depth to him in a way. I don't know. Maybe my point's not getting across there, but I think
I get what you're getting at.
Yeah, I mean, I respect what you guys are saying. I personally still don't really find him that deep of a character, quite frankly. I just think there's a lot more fleshed out characters in, you know, other comedies that I've seen. And granted, this one he's supposed to be like very perfect, so it's a bit hard to even look really closely at him. Like what Vicky says, like, is it just him, you know, existing and kind of draws everybody around him? You know, and like through that, you know, it shows these small moments. And I also liked, you know, him caring for wildlife and stuff like that. And how, like, you know, he acts this way even when no one's looking, kind of a thing. I definitely like that aspect of his character for sure. Like he's not trying to show off. Definitely 100% that's a good thing. I don't think it's in question that he's a good person. Like he's 100% a good person. What Viggy, you were talking about, like the side characters and like, you know, what little changes that they went through. One of the ones that I was kind of disappointed by was Achan's kind of arc, quote unquote, where, you know, at the beginning, you know, he's like a thug and he's a bully, and, you know, Sakamoto changes him to the point where, you know, he doesn't smoke anymore, he blows bubbles, and, you know, that dude kind of falls in love with him in a way, in a weird way. Like his crew like really enjoys Sakamoto's company after even trying to trick him and everything, in like episode 1. And, you know, later, all it takes is Sakamoto showing him up a couple times in a snowball fight for him to suddenly doubt everything that just happened. And, you know, it takes one conversation from, like, shitty Erina's dad from Shokugeki no Soma to be like, let's get him out of the way. He's the moon that draws the moth that can't reach the moon. And he's like, okay, bro, I'm gonna take a baseball bat to the stage. And, you know, I was just very disappointed with that. And they tried to make it into this very deep emotional moment that just didn't hit for me personally. Like maybe it hit some of you guys more, but I just didn't find it very well executed. It just seemed to come out of nowhere. The shift.
It didn't hit me. No, that didn't. It was kind of weird how that played out. Because like there was no consistent growth. It's like, did nothing that they interacted with like carry any weight, and it was kind of weird.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing. But one thing I want to transition to, because I think Josh, you mentioned one of your like favorite scenes or like moments. I wanted to get a gist of what everybody's kind of favorite skit or like, you know, kind of segment of the show was, like bit, you know. For me, it's probably when Hayabusa's trying to impress the girl for his dad, and like he has to hide in his coat. That was probably one of the couple times for me where like I got a good chuckle out of it. That and like the porn shop scene probably.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, yes.
Well, DVD store that had a
DVD store that had a porn section, yeah. So I was curious what your guys' favorite like kind of moments were, like small moments.
I mean, like just the sheer, like, I don't know how they were gonna like figure out like going into that for the video shop, because I had a number of times where that was very, very relatable, but like I never actually went to the adult section of the video store. But it was funny how that played out. Dang, I'm laughing about it because I don't know, it hit some good points. But yeah, did anyone else want to go?
Yeah, Ryan and Nate, did you have something?
Well, I was gonna say, yeah. Sorry, I didn't really have much to say regarding his depthness, because I kind of agree a little bit of everything earlier. So I kind of took a step back. But
it's yes or no. You gotta choose a side right now.
Wait, what?
I'm kidding,
but yeah, but regarding like my favorite bits, I would say definitely. Well, I fucking love the DVD shop one. That was hilarious to me. But I think Shit, I'm trying to remember. So the episodes with the mom, with his best friend's mom,
Yes.
those were the
Yes.
best ones for me because holy crap, this lady went straight up psycho. She was like, Sakamoto-kun, and like, I want you, but like, I'm a wife.
Cascades.
Exactly. She just like, and I loved how he basically duped her in the first like arc, so to speak, quote unquote. And he was like, "I now live on the TV. You can't have me." And then later on, finds out that Sakamoto is still real and fucking passes as his like her own son because her son is sick. I was like, "This is hilariously ridiculous." And I love it. Like I like those two top tier to me. And then I really love the episode where actually where he wasn't even actually involved. I think it was towards the end where everybody's like before Ashton fell, when everybody was reminiscing about the photos and they were like, "You didn't get him on like." On his swimsuit for real, like why? And all the girls were just being dumb about that. Like to me, that was hilarious. And they were like, "No, you caught him on this one. He looks like Aphrodite." And I was like, "This is like I face palmed so hard," but I enjoyed it because it's just one of those moments where you're like, "Oh, he's not gonna be around." But I would say at least top three, top three. That was actually the third one. Second one, it's actually when they invite him to a mixer when he's nowhere around his high school friends.
Yes.
And then they gave him a full-blown soda, begins to sing opera. Nobody understands him yet. They're very charmed with him. And
German
then
or Russian?
exactly, and then when he fucking burps, it actually makes it sound like the actual original pronunciation of that opera or whatever it was. And I was like, what the actual fuck? Like this was one of those moments where I thought he failed. Nah, bro, he did it right. Like it was honestly those were my top. Yeah, it stuck the landing, and those three were my top three like tidbits moment or bits that I really really enjoyed. To be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, oh, do you want to go, David?
No, go ahead, man.
I mean, yeah, my top three were probably the DVD shop, the karaoke mixer, and when he helps Hayabusa trying to get his dad to get a rich lady to be his future wife and mother for his kids, I guess, and then we find out she's a gold digger, so that obviously didn't happen. But yeah, those three were the bits that I found the most like comedic. They definitely gave me the most chuckles for sure. Seeing this guy sing Earl Koenig in a in a modern karaoke bar with like or a karaoke room and slowly win the charms of the other people was hilarious. So there definitely were like high points for sure. Like there were parts that at least made me like laugh a little bit, enjoy myself.
I think one point about those scenes that like helps a lot is that instead of just doing the like split moment joke that they, that I was saying that got so tiring for me, where it's just like, you played the music and everything, which like I like the idea and everything if it was used more seldom, but with the ones that we're talking about, they were like longer drawn out scenes where it's like a little more tension and a little bit more like how's it going to be pulled off rather than just like one quick little like cut joke.
Yeah, like from a structural perspective, they weren't like this is an established situation. Everything's going to shit, and then you hear and then Sakamoto fixes it. Like they didn't work. Like almost every other episode functioned that way. These episodes were like, alright, this is a everyday this is a somewhat relatable, kind of everyday situation. So it's like, like mischievous high schoolers trying to get to Depono. And
that's the perfect way to put it.
As a person that's been to Japan and actually been to a video store, and we had a friend who was super hyped to go into one of those sections, and he did it, and then we're like, well, probably shouldn't leave him alone. There is definitely like this weird atmosphere that radiates from the drapes that makes them feel kind of impenetrable. Like that is definitely like a psychological thing. Can confirm.
So you can kind of visit them at cons.
They're the beads, the bead curtain in some places.
Yep. So it is definitely a thing. And then the date is like, okay, how would Sakamoto fare on a group date? and then the dad thing is like, okay, how is Sakamoto going to help this guy act, basically? So
For so tuning in off of that and everything
Yeah, no
would
problem.
so like yeah that I was just like expressing that because like I did find those some of like my top moments, but okay, because of who I am, I think I'm gonna be the only one. But my favorite character by far in the show is the is the Bumblebee dude, the blonde fat dude. I absolutely
Damn it, David.
love him, and he was by far my favorite character because no matter what scene it is, more so than Sakamoto's ridiculousness, which is more of just like whatever, right? The ridiculousness after he took off his shirt in the first episode of every scene, no matter where they are, like in the classiest places, he's just sitting there with like nothing on. Like that joke hit me like every single time because they would just pan the camera to a bunch of school students, and then it looks like some like washed up like mid-30s dude who has like a huge gut who's just like chilling there, and he's just like and like no one reacts to it. Like I love it. So like I don't know, even something like the race sits in my mind as like one of the funniest scenes when they're running, right? And dude, like I just because it's his personality. Like he was one of the characters because like I like his like cockiness where he's just like very like nonchalant about everything, and I love the reaction, like other people react to it in a way where they're like, yo, what the fuck's going on, you know? It's like when he was running and he's just slowly stripping off his clothes, like to the audience you're like, what the fuck? But then the funniest part is when you go to the actual like other students, they're also feeling the same way, so it like confirms that like what's happening. But just again, the nonchalantness of like what he's doing, where he's just like there's no reason, he's just stripping down and he's running, right? It's just it got me. It was just so funny to me. So like to me, like that scene, and there's pretty much any 5-second cut where he's just like standing there, right? Like that to me was just the funniest content in the show.
He's very cocky, but like he's very genuine as well, and he's very true to
Right.
himself.
That's
so
true,
I think
yeah.
that made him like very endearing, you know.
Mhm.
So, what about you, Ryan?
So my favorite scene, yes. So sorry, I haven't been saying much. I just couldn't really find a good way to like slide into the conversation.
Good way to segue in, yeah.
You can find a good segue, yeah.
I was trying to avoid the segue jokes. I think David's made too many.
I made 2.
Yeah, too many.
We'll explain the segue at the end of the show, guys. At the end.
I'll
But,
segue into it.
So back just a tad for Sakamoto's death. I currently just agree with with Viggy, where it wasn't really any depth in him, just more like depth of the characters necessarily. It was, but it was still done terribly. So like favorite moments of the show, I absolutely loved where they wasted 8 minutes of my freaking life walking on a line across the sidewalk to wherever the fuck. I fucking loved that. And I'm being so sarcastic at this point.
Oh.
Like that was the biggest waste of my time.
damn.
Now,
was
what I
character
actually
death.
liked. No, it's okay. Now, what I actually liked was again the TV one, where he was hiding from the best friend's mom. That was actually kind of funny. I'm like, it was like it gave you the good initial shock of like, hey, this is like kind of what the show is going to be like. It's going to be kind of crazy and kind of just literally anything you could freaking think of. So it's just like it initial hit of just like, hey, you know, I'm playing up the TV dramas, like you can't have me anymore, but I still love you, or whatever the hell. And then you just look at the tape, and she's like, out of all these dramas I've seen, how did I not see this? And I'm like, how in the fuck could you have seen it? Like, there's no way. He hopped into the TV, and it became a TV man. Okay. The porn shop one was pretty good too. Like, I don't know, man. After that, really, I mean, yeah, the rest of them kind of were funny to me, but it was just mostly like a bunch of crazy shit. That and I kind of like when they were playing what was that freaking the sumo hand game, that was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh hey, let me do all this, and then everyone thinks he's gonna summon lightning. I'm like, knowing Sakamoto, he fucking would. You know, just have lightning rain down on this dude. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, I'm expecting lightning to come out because at this point, I expect him to be able to have anything happen. Like, luck is on his side.
He high fives Raiden. He just comes out of Mortal Kombat.
She's like, here, thanks. Electrocutes the hell out of him, but no, just gently pushes him into a taxi because that's what he is. He cares about everybody, regardless of who they are.
It's funny. It's funny how he won or went like toe to toe in that encounter, and when he saved Kubota from the bullying by using like random condiments and shit. And then and then later on, Hayabusa's like, "Do you know how to fight?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "Wait, what? You definitely do, dude." But anyway, that was a random aside.
The techniques that the friends do are kind of funny too. Like when they at the fast food restaurant, they're just like buns, like the bun smash secret technique, bun press or whatever the fuck, and picks up dirt and just like throws them in the eyeballs. Like here's the salt on the fries.
See, for me, like they would have been funny if I didn't see that exact same bit done way better in Mob Psycho.
God kill me.
So to me, they were kind of underwhelming, but yeah, it was kind of cute.
It was cute. It was
He's like, yeah, it's kind of cute, don't want to be a dick about it, but
it's like you're not it, but you kind of cute though.
Exactly.
Definitely.
You brought up the mom thing, right? When she was like pining after him, I thought that they would and they kind of dove into her realizing like, oh, she's better off just being like a mom for her son. And, she like remembered by looking at the big titties, like why, she's a mom or whatever.
Curtain boobs.
Yeah, curtain boobs. But I thought that, they purposely kind of like show or don't show that he doesn't have a dad. So I thought that like they're going to go into that more. Like that's why she's pining after him, because she's just been desperately trying to like fill this void in like her son's life. Maybe he like needs a father figure or something.
He actually does have a dad.
Does he? Did I just miss that?
They show him in the first episode of this. Yeah, so in the first episode where it's the mom thing, where she actually sees him, they do like a little bit of a flashback when they're eating dinner, and he shows the mom whatchamacallit with him. But then in the second episode when she's passing as her son, what Hiro said, it shows that they had a fight, I think it was, and then he like walked away or something like that. I can't fully remember, but it was something along those lines. So he had a dad, but then they had a fight, he left. So, but yeah, I think if anything, that was the most like fucking depth I've gotten out of out of one of the characters, to be honest.
Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, no, I probably just wasn't paying attention then.
How could you not pay attention after binging it in one sitting and loving every minute of it? Come on, man.
Exactly, man. Please. Come on. Gosh.
Are there any other kind of questions you guys or anything else you want to talk about? Whatever we touched.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of like go over my favorite parts. Yeah. So, like you guys had like, I don't know, I like the whole show. It's one of, like I said, it's one of my top 5 like favorite anime. Ultimately, what I can say like out of it is, if I were to screenshot a random thing, like a random secret technique, or like the results of like Sakamoto solving whatever thing he's facing, it would be just out of context, so ridiculous. And I don't know, I feel like it would intrigue people to like, what is going on in this context for this to happen. But I really enjoyed, of course, the one with the mom, his best friend's mom. It was just like one of those hide and seek things. Like I love hide and seek when I was a little kid, and so far I have been undefeated and never I found so many great hiding places. So it just reminded me of my childhood with that episode. But the other one that I liked was when the one where they had the fire evacuation, and I don't know, it's just one of those ridiculous things where like there's a guy who's just like straggling behind and just like, oh no, he needs to be saved. So like Sakamoto goes in and he like rescues him like some like commando, and like I don't know, it was just ridiculous. And that particular one where like he has the what was it? It was the monster, or like whatever, the ring. Yeah, it was the ring episode. I thought it was so ridiculous. And it was a callback to his best friend losing his hair, or getting his hair lost. he gets the trash bag. He gets the trash bag and makes him a wig, but it goes back to that, and he gets the hair in the sink. He gets the hair in the sink and he makes him a wig. I don't know. The wig was partially trying to choke him, but he's like, "Oh, look how beautiful I look." And I'm like, I'm fucking dying. Oh man, as a cosplayer, I know how crazy wigs trying to make a wig, like the whole process of it, and I was just like dying because it was a little bit of kind of like a callback to a really hard task that I had to learn how to do. But it just turned it into a fun, kind of funny, like spin on it, and that's what really what I like out of Sakamoto. Takes problems, and it's just like, hey, don't worry, be happy. It was just like that's what I like about the anime. But yeah, other questions for you guys?
I think Vicky, you wanted to say something?
Nothing.
Yeah. So, what was everyone's general reaction to the anime's depiction of American people?
That was fucking hilarious.
Wait. There was that?
Did you watch
Yeah, it was
episode
on
13?
13.
Epilogue episode.
Did you stop at 12?
Oh, I stopped at 12 because I
Yeah.
saw the
Oh,
credit.
no.
I saw the credits roll. I saw a little bit of episode 13, and I was like, "This is just a recap. I don't need to
Yeah.
watch this." It's fine.
Not gonna lie, episode
like, I didn't
13
stop-
is one of my
It's-
favorites.
you can
Yeah.
just stop at 12. It's really like
I
yeah.
I kind of
Look, man,
love episode 13. Not
It's
gonna
mostly
lie.
recap, but they kind of weave in a couple like new little segments.
Look, man, if I see the credits roll and the initial / ending song are playing one after another, I'm like, this is the end of the anime, man. I don't need to watch the epilogue. I'm done. I'm done.
But yeah,
Nah,
Nate,
I'm kidding. I'll
Rate
watch it
every
later.
Gundam series ever then.
basically,
How do you
I
get
mean,
through the Marvel movies?
basically, just so you know, like what they do is basically every single girl is blonde and has big tits, and
Hell
like
yeah.
every character has like a huge nose, and like
Oh my
they all
God, I
speak, like,
swear.
horrible Japanese that's like supposed to represent like English.
Oh God.
And yeah, it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
it's just like it's
Yeah,
pretty
they're
funny.
like- They're like, let's
That's
say
hilarious.
what this Japanese boy, and they say Japanese boy like in an English accent.
Like what you said.
Like they're like in a they're like in bad Japanese saying let's see what this, and then like in English they're like Japanese boy, and then they're like does in this situation, and then they like do a bunch of crap, and then their instructor is like this super loud yelling like black trainer guy. They're like, okay, well, this is something.
Oh my God. Wait, so he does end up going to America then?
So,
Yeah, so the canon, the actual ending is like he goes to America and they put him in the space training program, and then he becomes the captain of the space shuttle.
That's fucking insane. fucking fast forward to space. Fucking that
No, but
Netflix
there's no
show.
time skip.
No.
just
I'm
happened.
saying like my joke was time skip to that space show, freaking Space Force, that it's on Netflix right now with Steve Carell. Steve Carell is Sakamoto. Boom.
he finds Darling in the space, and then he joins them.
Dude, spoilers! Holy shit!
How about we fucking don't, bro?
Darling, man. Come on, Brian.
What? I'm so lost.
Yeah.
Darling in the Franks. Spoilers.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I feel like even if you haven't seen that anime, you know what he's talking about.
Yeah, you shouldn't watch it.
It's good for the first 3 quarters. Last quarter isn't very good.
All right. You know, maybe we
Yeah.
can watch that and review it, but
At some point. At some point, I guess.
You guys have.
One question. Or
Were you talking about the favorite best anime in the whole world?
It is the best.
I mean,
I can't say that straight. I can't even say that straight. All right, I'm done.
Who
so
doesn't love planetary-sized titties?
Alright, before we go full trigger here, we should probably do like closing remarks or something.
well, I wanted to ask a question.
No.
Yeah. Wow, guys, he got me. He got me. Okay, I get it.
Oh
No, I'm just kidding,
God.
Ryan.
There's a bit of a feud right now, by the way.
Let's just get it out of the way.
Domestic spat between
Describe
Ryan
it.
and David.
Explain it, Vicky.
Well, I mean, I don't need to explain anything. You just don't pick up his calls.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And
Whack.
Look, if David doesn't want to come into our orgy later, that's his fault. All right?
Oh
you
my
know what?
lord.
Okay,
Oh, we're gonna get
I'm gonna say it.
right
I'm gonna
now.
say
We're
it.
gonna get R18
how about we
plus real
don't?
quick.
Whack.
We're content flag already. We are
Segue
now.
and segue should be spelled the same.
Ogre. Ogres have layers, right? That's what I heard.
Yeah. TLDR,
Sakamoto had layers, but no one else
segue
agrees.
was the same word.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
David also didn't know that segue, the product, was not the same as segue, the verb.
Because it is a flawed language. I made an extremely hilarious joke on chat, which is something I rarely do. And
He says that, but he actually can.
Yeah.
You're not giving yourself enough credit.
Thanks, guys.
I kid. We love you.
So,
We love you.
What's your question though?
So my real question is that was there any theories you guys had that either came true or didn't come true? I had a few. Let me start with one of them, and then I'll go off the other one after you guys talk. But my first one was the best friend. They kept maybe it was just to me, but I kept on thinking they implied that it was a chick instead, and that was going to be the big reveal. That the best friend was actually a female, especially with like some of the boob jokes and the way they like designed him. And I thought he was going to admit his love for Sakamoto. I don't know. I felt they teased that a few times, and I really thought that's what was going to happen. Then it just didn't, and I was kind of
it became half true.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the love was there, but it was like, it wasn't like, I don't know.
I think they made it a point to show that he's like kind of feminine. You know, like he has like slightly feminine features and stuff like that.
Which was cool.
Yeah,
it was more of just like I totally thought they were building up to like a female review, but
I can see that. Yeah. I had a theory that the show would eventually get funny, and it didn't.
dude,
Damn.
that's
Oh,
The roast of Sakamoto.
bro. You basically me in episode 2 right now. I love it.
Freaking savage, my dude. All right.
All right, a salty comment out of the way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No one's coming. Don't worry.
I mean, I was just gonna say that I usually don't. I don't ever speculate too much unless it's like that's the nature of the show. Like there's some distinct mystery or whatever. The one thing I thought might happen was like maybe once they tried to introduce the antagonist, it would focus more on their feud or something, or it would like
Yeah.
attempt to be like a humor story with a central plot thread, which it like kind of sort of did, but it felt super out of place.
Because they jumped around, like they introduced a villain. I was like, okay, maybe like I started getting interested in the last like 4-ish episodes. So I was like, okay, maybe they're gonna kind of wrap it up with more of like, instead of like episodic, or even it's not even episodic, it's like bi-episodic. There's like 2 episodes per episode. But I thought they were gonna do what you said, right? The antagonist, because they set up an antagonist that was like somewhat intriguing, because he seemed like the anti-Sakamoto, like pretty much a perfect bad guy kind of.
Yeah, he was like the ultimate bully, basically.
Exactly. And they just kind of like they threw in some random episodes in between, and then they just kind of shoved it in the end. And it didn't. Okay, I'll be honest. I didn't really get it when they made him bow and then kick him out. I mean, I guess that's him accepting that he's graduated. Is that what happened? And then they kicked him out of the school.
They were literally just trying to remove him from the theater.
But it was like a line of like that was like 5 feet long.
So how I interpret it is like they have like photographic evidence and like everybody and like witnesses and everything basically showing that he has graduated, so he can't just like admit that he didn't and like come back. But you guys are right, like he could have been a very interesting pivot for the show. You know, like up before he showed up, it was all about Sakamoto like saving the day, and then what if some guy shows up that is able to actually stop him? You know, like that would be really fascinating. Yeah, his foil, but like that didn't happen. He just kind of shows up to like use his sexy voice and like manipulate people into doing things for like a split second, and then Sakamoto wins anyway. And he didn't even see his like ploy coming at the end either, so he wasn't even a perfect bad guy in the end, right? So yeah, it was disappointing. I thought that would go somewhere too, for sure.
Anyone else have theories before I just?
I have just kind of like a theory that similar to very mysterious kind of like occurring characters in different anime or manga is the alien from part 4 JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I think that he is actually an alien. And there, if you look at it, there's a lot of evidence that supports it. Mainly his lack of desires, like like typical desires, or the theory is that he has kind of like a mental. I don't know the word. I'm not very like adept in
Like he has like
the
Asperger's or
different
something?
terms of like psychologically statuses or conditions of people where they believe that they are something that they aren't. Kind of like when Fry in Futurama, he thinks that he is a robot, and he's like, "You cannot penetrate my skintanium alloy." And he's like, and then Roberto stabs him with a blade, and he's like, "He is a robot." I think it's like a mental state that he thinks that
Yeah, like how
he-
Uncle Ruckus thinks he's white.
yeah, different things like that. Like, it just goes to show that the mind is more powerful than you think. And when you believe, it manifests in itself to a certain degree. And so those are my two theories. And then also for the fact that he actually goes out to Massa, was the bootleg NASA. Yeah, I think that he might actually like be. My theory is that he might like if they were to continue it in like an OVA, he's actually like the person to find and make friends with extraterrestrial intelligent life. So that's where I see it going.
Yeah, there was some fun. Oh, go ahead, Nate. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that was my theory too, that he was an alien. But
Yeah.
honestly, if they do that in an OVA, I would just be like, fucking confirmed, he's an alien. He
Yeah.
just was looking for more aliens. GG.
Yeah.
He was trying to understand the human race. At that point, if that happened, I would just be like, this whole show makes sense and it's hilarious. Boom.
Right,
That's
and
it.
the balloon thing
Like,
where
there you
it's
go.
like, yeah, like he does
It,
the
it makes
editing.
sense. Yep, it makes sense. Boom.
There was a lot of like alien like symbols and like just phrases that were dropped a lot during the show, which is only something I picked up on. Like he has, I think like there's a part where he's like holding like it's like wipes or like clay or something. It had like an alien logo on it. The thing with the balloons, obviously with like the UFO. Then he literally just talks about the fact that like in a broad sense we're aliens ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think he says like mankind is a very interesting species.
Right.
Like so there's definitely a lot of like subtle hints, like especially when Hayabusa is like, you're not really going to America, right? Like maybe he means like, oh, you're going off Earth somewhere, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's interesting to think about. Doesn't make the show better, but I'm just kidding. It's interesting though.
Hey, it doesn't hurt me. I still like it.
Yeah.
Just want to say that. Nah, go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with I mean here, like, yeah, true. It doesn't hurt me. I still like it.
So yeah, I mean the Mars thing, or I just assumed it was Martian because that was like the hint. Was kind of like what I was gonna say, just because of all the teases and the very on the nose teases. But now that we're wrapping up, one last theory I wanted to give out, and like I'll admit I found this. I didn't find this one myself. I didn't really do research, but like I did see it on a comment, and I know we try to keep just to our own thoughts and everything, which is why I want to just end with it instead. But the death theory is a huge theory of the show, where the whole point is that Sakamoto is actually terminally ill. And this whole thing, his whole arc, is basically him just like living out his last moments. So a lot of him not being interested in the girls and not wanting a relationship is because he knows he's going to end. Him doing all this selflessness and all these selfless things to help others is because he knows he's in his last moments. I mean, his last year or so. Him leaving and him saying that, like, giving some excuse to be far away, which seamlessly doesn't make much sense in the context of a show with a high schooler and still like a education arc there. It's so out there for him just to be like, I'm going to NASA, and it seems like even when he first brings it up, it seems very like he's just kind of saying something that's cool. A lot of that goes off the thought that like he's just trying to give a scapegoat something to be like, look, I'm going to be far away, and his far away is Mars, or just like the space, the stars where he's going to die. And also to further confirm it, the final chapter of the manga, right? At least that was released. It's so on the nose. The cover art for that is that he's in a coffin, just like waiting there, and it's supposed to be kind of like humorous in a way, but it's also very much on the nose that like it's implied that he's basically going to his death. So I really like that theory, and it added like a layer to it. Again, it's probably not true, and like the last minute, because everything in the final episode, in episode 13, was just theories and fun and them just imagining things, right? Like what would it be like, right? And then it wasn't until that very last minute, and it's still somewhat ambiguous whether or not like that actually that last minute was true, where he's at NASA and flying away. Because technically that wasn't really anyone's thought. It was just kind of like a weird cut, and then that was what was happening. And I see a lot of people say like, you know, that also like that's very ambiguous, or maybe that's not actually what happened. It wasn't like that transparent, you know. It might just be, to me, maybe it's just symbolism. I mean, that's him, because you don't see anyone else on the ship. It's just him flying away into the stars to his death. So I don't know if that was true. Even if it's not, it kind of made me like the show a little bit more, just because I was like, that I'm gonna go with that headcanon when like thinking of the show, because him leaving and his final goodbyes and everything were final goodbyes to his life and to his neighbors.
Yeah, that could be really interesting, actually.
Yeah, that's super deep.
In my head right now, with the evidence we have, I think him being an alien is more likely in a really weird way. That's probably the most ridiculous thing I could probably
He's not
say.
dying, dude. He's just an alien.
Yeah, but like that would be pretty fascinating, especially if obviously the manga evidence, like we don't know about what happens, obviously. But if that is definitely in the manga, that's actually pretty interesting. And who knows? I mean, it could just be like a Caillou has cancer situation.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's
cool. That's neat to think about.
That would make me cry. It's like a Make-A-Wish foundation, and it's just like his last thing is to be an astronaut and like go and colonize Mars, and it's like, oh, he's actually not going to make it, and I'm like, dear Lord, I would cry.
Well, that's kind of the beauty of it. What if
That's funny though, because to me that's similar to like the whole Pokemon theory, where like everybody says Ash is actually 10 forever because he got struck by lightning and he's in a coma, and like that shattered me. Like you said that theory and I was like, fuck, if this is real, I'm fucking sad now. But like it kind of would make it a lot deeper than that, and then I would actually cry, not gonna lie, because that's just
all of his classmates
yeah, what's that?
I was saying, what if all of his classmates know, and like they're all just feeding into like him
Right.
being awesome?
Yo, miss the pies, just throw it at the
why he's so
wall.
awesome. Yeah, like
Dude.
they just prop him up constantly, and like
I wouldn't like
Gaga over him on purpose because they're like,
Yeah.
I want to feel good, you know?
That's pity. That's pity. Like I don't like that concept.
I mean, it's not necessarily pity. Like, it's just like, yo, hey, this man is leaving Earth. Like, I would do my damnest to make sure that whoever's last moments, if I knew and it was up to me, I would do whatever the fuck that person wanted. Like, I would make that person feel like it's like they're having the time of their life. So because just think about it, like, wouldn't you want to have just the most awesome memories at the end of life? That's why it's so baffling whenever I hear people, my life flash before my eyes kind of situation, because you're just thinking about everything that you went through. So low-key, I think that if it were like that, I mean, I know we're getting deep and a little bit dark here, but if that was it, I don't think that would have been out of pity. I think that would have been showing. It would have given a lot more depth into everybody else, and it would have shown how everybody else actually cares back about Sakamoto and doesn't expect him to just be this fucking white knight flawless character. So like that actually, I don't know. If that had been the case, I'm saying that would have been incredibly deep, and it would have given in an instant, it would have given so much more depth to the one-dimensional characters like crew or cast that we had. So honestly, yeah, like that's just my thoughts. If it had been, but because it wasn't, at least based off of what we have, this is just Sakamoto's an alien and he's hilarious. So yeah, that's my theory. Anyways,
But I don't know. I think there's some good takeaway from that. Because like at the end of the day, like why shouldn't we be trying to treat each other better as if like we don't know if it's going to be the last time we see him. So why not try to turn every, bad situation good? And I feel like that's really important. Even if there's people who want to be mean or be purposely hurtful, like why not show them some kindness? Because you don't know if when anyone's time is going to happen. And like me watching it a third time, especially with everything going on, like it's definitely meaningful. Like I try to keep that mindset of like, hey, I want to make sure like anyone who comes across me, if I come across them and they think back to their time, their little minuscule time with me encountering them or crossing paths with them, that it's positive. Like that's how I would want to be remembered, because you never know when you're gonna die. You never know. Like I had a close call, a number of close calls, but like I feel like it's good. It's good to live your life like you were dying, because you never know.
Yeah. I mean, you guys make good points, and I like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I think I like that theory. Like, one, because like there's some substance to it. Obviously it's like a really big stretch because they don't really hint at it that much. It's more of just like our interpretation, but I think it adds some depth to it. I think the students hyping him up. Obviously, there's a lot of holes you can poke into that, which already in a theory that could be poked with a lot of holes. But I don't know. I like low key because like I'm a little indifferent about the show. I think going in with that headcanon kind of lets me leave it with like a little bit more appreciation. So
That's fair. That's definitely fair. I think definitely though, keep in mind that like bringing theories into anything can make it better, and it's kind of an artificial way to do it,
Yeah.
right? I feel like it should be divorced from how you feel of the show, and then if it enhances that, in like a separate timeline kind of a thing, if it's true, then yeah, for sure. Like, the indoctrination theory makes Mass Effect 3 a lot better. Is it true? Probably not, right? So
That's
it's
true.
definitely
Like-
important to keep in mind that it is separate.
that's
too.
a great.
So like
Doctors
how,
are important.
nah, but yeah.
The fact that you had to like even bring some sort of hypothetical thing with zero, but just pure compelling thought experiment into it in order to make it feel palatable speaks less to the
No.
nature and believability of any theory or information and more to the shortcomings of the show as presented.
Let me clarify that like just a little bit real quick. It's not that it makes the show it's not that I would give it the credit to the show or I would think it's a better show. And I only saw this at the very ending. When I finished the show, like I wanted to read a little bit on it because I was feeling very indifferent on the show. And when I saw that was like just like a fan theory that was kind of going around and kind of got some traction, I was like, that's pretty cool, and I like that. And I guess I'm saying more, if that was more factual, that could have enhanced the experience. I go into a show that like I personally am not the biggest fan of, even if it has its high moments. I'm just saying that pretty much like it, going on with that headcanon like would help me appreciate the show a little bit more for something I find a little drab at times versus like me actually saying that giving the credit to the show. I said that poorly, but you guys know exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I did some research after too, just to see if there was anything more I could get out of it other than the surface level, not really feeling the humor. And apparently, there's this huge, there's a thread through the whole thing on the theme of bullying. Apparently, I caught some of it. For context, the term is ijime, but yeah, I didn't spend a ton of time looking into it, but apparently there's some through lines regarding the nature of bullying in Japan. So maybe with that nuance, I might have interpreted stuff differently.
You could probably extrapolate that. Yeah, I think there was definitely some decent, like some of what I liked, and I just had a note on that was just like I feel like some of the events and like situations did have like a decent message to them. Maybe not the deepest, but it tried something which elevated it a tiny bit for me. Not enough, but yeah. All right. Any other thoughts, sayings, or anything before our boy does his wrap up?
I guess we should segue
Do you
into our.
want to show them or announce the next anime that we're going to cover?
So
You mean segue into the next anime we're watching?
Segue.
Yes.
Yo, we're gonna do it for
Segueing,
every
alright.
episode.
Yeah, so if nobody has anything else to say about this show. The
I
next
like
show we're
it.
gonna watch is Dorohedoro by Studio Mappa. So see you guys next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Jingle.
Thank you for
Jingle.
I will see
listening.
you on YouTube and on Instagram and on Twitch, maybe.
Yes, follow our 2 resident YouTubers. Make their dreams.
Hit that bell icon.
Yeah, because if you don't hit that bell, it's basically like you're not subscribed because you want to get all those notifications and make
And
sure
smash that subscribe button while you're at it.
you do
Only
it.
hit it once.
No,
Every
hit it
time I hear
twice.
smash that subscribe button, I'm like, are you like?
Yes.
Downvote
Now we're
me.
definitely getting
Why
content
don't we?
flagged,
just,
right?
Just downvote me. If you, just give me some attention.
I mean, look at our logo.
What? Do you,
Yeah, we got that,
We can't
David.
admit it.
When
No,
are we
I made it myself.
When are we?
Do the animal the anime crossing.
You do not upload that. You got confused yourself and you know it.
Yeah.
No, he ruined.
You're gonna ruin his template.
He ruined. No, dude. No. Turn him off. Turn him off. Turn him off.
Yeah, that's right. Fuck you, Craig. Kizuna Eye is cuter than you.
All right. All right.
I fucking can't.
All right.
What is this?
All right.
What is the?
All right. You know what? I'm starting off this podcast. This is my turn to start off. All right. I'm gonna do my best Ish impression. All right.
I'm dying. Oh fuck! I needed that, yo. It's been great. This is
All right.
great.
Are we starting?
Oh, fuck.
Now that everyone's seen Sakamoto, do you guys recognize my photo?
Nah,
Or
not at all.
The profile
Now I do.
photo?
Yeah, that's pretty perfect.
Not at all.
This is gonna go.
Now,
This is-
now I
I'm
do.
feeling made in Abyss vibes right now. All right, guys.
Do you have the questions up
No.
on the thing?
And I don't.
I generally go into these.
I have it on my PC, but
Okay.
Okay.
well, we'll do the same format, like general thoughts first, and then maybe we can
Yeah.
dive into the questions. Yeah.
But so,
Yeah.
Welcome to Anime Crossing, episode 4. I'm with some beautiful people here, as Ish would say. Everyone want to introduce themselves, starting at the top?
hey everybody, I'm the Bane's Hero. I'm here from YouTube land / quarantine land, and hopefully going to return to Twitch land.
Hey. So I'm Baja Irish Rico.
And I'm Ryan.
This is Nate here.
I'm Big Nash.
Yo, what's up? I'm Ishan.
So the show for this month, week, or whatever time frame we ended up watching this in, is Sakamoto. Hey, let's restart that. Ish, just you do it.
For clarity, it's Sakamoto
I know.
Deska.
I know.
or
I
my
know.
name
I
is
can't.
Sakamoto.
I know. I just Ish, if you can do it.
Oh,
This is
okay.
great.
Hold on. I gotta.
Dude, you were doing so well.
1 second. Holy shit.
Remember, kids, don't live out your dreams. You'll fail like David.
I'm fucking dead.
I'm
Holy
good when I
God.
do it in my style, but when I try to
I
be
love
like,
you.
Oh Jesus!
I love you so much. Oh my god. Oh.
it's not that funny.
It is though because you literally like in my head. Look in my head. I'm like, yo, he's doing really fucking good. That's great. And then all of a sudden, hey, can we restart real quick?
Everyone be like, "Yo, David, you got a radio voice. You should be in radio." They don't know I'm
you
actually
should be.
stupid.
Well, I mean, it was more funny when Viggy was just like, "Never try to succeed in life, or you'll end up like David."
Was that funny? Was that funny?
Wait, are we still? We are still recording, right?
Yeah, no,
Oh, shit.
we are.
I think we are, yeah.
I'm just gonna make this bloopers.
Go for it.
Hell yeah, bro.
Because I'm not gonna stop recording until we finish.
Okay. All right, so
Give me like a 5-second pause.
Yeah.
Wait up. Wait. Fuck.
what's up?
What you eating?
Chicken strips and tater tots. More like hash browns, but fuck it.
What's
Homemade.
seasoning on the chicken?
Oh, there's no seasoning, man. This was
Damn it, man.
Fridge. It's fucking sad. I'm using sauce, bro.
You're eating fridge chicken?
Dude, my mom didn't want to cook today, bro. Like, what do you expect?
No, that's fair. But you at least gotta put pepper on that.
She made it. Like, I wasn't gonna judge it, like, but I am now. So, like, I feel so.
Oh my god.